there is actually only one formula that you need to achieve to succeed in your business. And in this video, I'm going to talk you through how to get from where you are to massive profitability and scale using just this formula. My name's Joel and I've been running startups for over a decade now, both my own and working as the growth advisor for over 100 startup teams. I've been head of growth, startup growth mentor at my local university, and what else do I do? Oh yeah, I make YouTube videos because I don't get enough attention at home. Let's start by talking about where this formula actually came from, because I am standing on the shoulders of giants with this one. In the marketing world, there's a general rule of thumb that if you get 3 times ROAS, or return on advertising spend, then you've done a good job and you should pat yourself on the back. This obviously varies massively between companies, and I've worked on projects in the past where we needed 10, 20, or we were aiming for 30 times ROAS. But for business owners, the idea here is that if you spend £1,000 on marketing and you get £3,000 back within a reasonable time frame, you'll be able to cover all your costs, you'll be able to pay off your suppliers, pay your overheads, and hopefully be left with some margin. Therefore, you would have a profitable business. Now, as a startup founder, it is extremely useful to know, but it does focus a little bit too much on marketing performance, when in the startup world, as we all know, there's millions of things you need to think about. So the big cheeses of the world like Alex Hormozi added an extra step to this formula. Instead of tracking customer lifetime value, which is just a fancy way of saying how much is each customer worth to you in a monetary amount, we should be measuring customer lifetime gross profit, which is a step further than CLTV. This is how much are they worth to you after you've spent the cost to deliver the product or service to them. This means that if your business works in much smaller margins, like say drop shipping, the formula still actually works for your business type, whereas the old one wouldn't have at all. We at Grow used this edited version for quite a while, but there was one flaw: the scalability of that marketing spend. For example, clients would say to us, oh, we spent £1,000 on marketing spend last month and we brought in 50 new customers in that time frame, which would mean that it cost £20 per customer, which in their context was good. But then when we actually got into the details of how they spent their marketing spend and where these customers came from, we would find that there was a lot of friends and family involved, there was a lot of random untracked purchases, and we couldn't prove that the money they actually spent created the customers they actually got. Which is critical here, because there is no evidence that if we spent 10 times more on marketing, we would get 10 times more customers. And that's kind of the key to all of this working. The formula, marketing your business. The formula was failing us. We made tweaks. Here it is, the most updated, revised, modern, and in full operation formula for 2025. It's the ratio between your customer acquisition cost and your customer lifetime gross profit. So let me dive into the details there. CAC, or customer acquisition cost, is the amount of money you need to spend on marketing and sales combined to acquire each new customer. But the caveat here is that the CAC needs to be calculated from direct marketing spend whilst excluding all the drifters that help you along in the early stages of business, i.e. your mama. If you have a business that's older than 3 to 5 years, then you can pretty safely just use the normal CAC calculations, because your metrics are less affected as you scale and these individual people carry less weight, unlike your mama. So, easy quick way of calculating your CAC is by taking last month's marketing spend and dividing it by the amount of new customers that you got in that time period. Customer lifetime gross profit is the easy and solid part of this formula that hasn't changed over the years. Calculate what your customer is worth to you in their entire lifetime after costs. So it looks a little bit like this. What is the average order value? Times that by the amount of average purchases each customer makes in a 1-year time frame, times that by the amount of years that each average customer will shop with you before they either no longer need your product or move on to another brand. That gives you the customer lifetime value, and we need to take it that extra step to get the CLGP. We want to remove how much it will cost to service that customer throughout their lifetime. If you know your gross profit margin, then just apply it to that number, easy as. If not, you're gonna have to go figure that out. CLGP acquired. So there was a lot of information there. As an example, you spend £1,000 to get 10 customers, therefore your CAC is £100. They shop with you for, on average, 3 years, and they rack up a total revenue of £600. Your product has a 70% gross profit per unit margin, which means that you get to keep 70% of that £600, which means you've got £420 in gross profit from each customer. If your CAC is 100 and they pay you £420 after costs, then your ratio is 1 to 4.2. That's good news. A reminder that anything above 1 to 3 plus is okay. Which means in this example, it's a small win. It's nothing to write home about, but you can build a viable business with those numbers. So let's break it down into brackets. A 1 to 3 plus could build a viable business. A 1 to 10 plus, you've got a big opportunity on your hands. And a 1 to 20, 30, 40, 50 plus, either you're an absolute pro and you knew exactly what you were doing all along, or your marketing spend isn't actually scalable and we need to redo the calculations. And that's the formula. It's simply the ratio between how much you have to spend to get these people to how much they are actually worth to you. The day that I found this formula was the day that building startups just suddenly became simple to me. It brought so much clarity to every single thing that I did. Admittedly, it took a few hours to sink in, but from that moment on, I knew exactly what I had to do in my business to succeed, and I blocked all the noise out. The eternal confusion of tracking a million metrics and a million different things that you need to be working on, it all kind of just disappeared. I only suddenly need to care about 2 things. 1, getting new customers as cheaply as possible. 2, making those customers worth as much as I can to us. Now, for those of you who are one step ahead and you're already trying to figure out how to achieve this formula in your business, I will get to that in a second. I know that some of you might be thinking that I am oversimplifying a little bit, and yes, I am trying to make a bite-sized video that you can all watch in under 10 minutes and understand the concept. But if you did want me to go all the way to the bottom, to the depths of this subject, it doesn't actually go much deeper than that one simple formula. All you really need to know are input metrics. So this is the metrics that feed into either side of that ratio, CAC or CLGP. I find it really helpful to write out all of my own input metrics on a digital board so that I can look at it first thing in the morning and I can decide if a task does not help one of those input metrics, therefore it doesn't help the ratio, and it's not for some reason urgent, sometimes they are, taxes, etc., then I don't do it. And yes, I keep forgetting to feed my cat, and I probably shouldn't have kids. So your input metrics could look like this. There's the cost per click, which brings people to your page, the conversion rate of that page, there we go, customer acquisition cost. It can be that simple. And on the other side of the ratio, you can have average order value, you can have average order frequency, and you could have the gross profit margin that would lead into your CLGP. So if that sounds like your company, there is a nice list of simple input metrics that you need to work on day by day, which will affect the larger ratio. And it doesn't go any deeper than that, to be honest. Improving this ratio will change your business and therefore probably your life. Okay, now on to the action section, how to apply it to your business. I want you to use something called growth experiments. Some of you might have heard of growth hacking before. Well, growth experiments are the actual actions that growth hackers use to improve each section of a business in a unique and sometimes quite surprising way. And if you want to learn how to be a growth hacker for your business, you need to watch this video here.